What's going on? My name is Stephen Christian. I'm joined by Brad Miller. Welcome to
Hey.
Reactant Media, our first online resource content thing. So welcome. I'm glad you guys are here. Brad, how's your evening going?
Oh, it's going great. It's dark out, but hey, we're good here. It's I'm super excited. I'm really pumped about what we're doing and what we're going to be chatting about today. So, what is Reactant Media? What are we?
Yeah, well,
What are we
Brad, I'm so happy you asked. I'm just kidding. Hey, we are a brand new media company bringing new content that supports creative and professional growth through hands-on consulting, live leadership events, online resources for companies from bootstrap to large companies, nonprofits, and faith-based organizations. So, what if if we're all brand new to Reacted. So,
That's right.
what should we expect from Reacted, Brad?
So we are going to be creating some video content on YouTube, which is the first one you're listening to and seeing right now. We'll have interviews with special guests and industry leaders all around the world, from design, creative, engineering, you name it. We're going to bring in some awesome, great people that we can chat with and share with you. Another thing is we're going to be providing some resources on our website and through social media. So check out posts on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, which we'll provide later. But we're going to do live events as well. So this is one thing that we're working through. We're planning right now a Reactant Media live event. Obviously, date pending, but we're working through that. And Reactant Media is born on something new and fresh, which is basically a lot of people are going to be doing right now. There is, and this is our video today. We're actually going to be talking about that exactly. That's happening right now. How many people are actually at home, stuck, trying to figure out what's next? And I think Stephen, we'll sort of jump into that right now if you want.
Yeah. I heard Mike Tyson once say that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And like,
By
I can't
him or
imagine
that
a
would hurt.
punch in the face from Mike Tyson. But but I think that it's so true. Companies, organizations, churches, nonprofits, they all have a plan. They have a business plan. I mean, that's all based on it. But when something like this happens, a quarantine, a virus, a market crash, a housing crash, a bubble, what you name it, it
Yeah,
just it seems that the economy and businesses become reactionary. And
yeah,
so it's in these times that we have to become proactive as a society, as a culture. But let's bring it down to a myopic level. You and I, we
yeah,
have to become proactive. Our companies cannot stop. And
yeah,
my wife was commenting just the other day. She was saying, like, it's amazing how many commercials on TV right now are talking about, like, hey, we know you're struggling, so here's the deal that we're having, and how
yeah,
fast Ford Motor Company, like how fast and quickly they put these together. They
yeah,
put together a financing package, payment, all this stuff
yeah,
instantaneously. And for me, that's proactive.
yeah,
And so, in these times, so we're going to talk today a little bit about what we can do as humans, as companies, to kind of readjust
yeah,
in times when we as a whole, as proverbial whole,
yeah,
get punched in the mouth.
yeah.
So
I mean, you were mentioning to me earlier, like just about like what a plan would be like, and you were saying like you're just mentioning the Ford thing is interesting, right? Like they have these big companies or marketing departments that are like, hey, we have this going on, let's just hurry up and get this out. It's like, how do people do that, right? I think that's one thing that we're going to talk about today, like you mentioned, is like what is our plan? Like how do we move forward? What could happen with everything kind of going on in the world? So
yeah.
it's interesting. I guess one thing I'd like to know is like, how are you all sort of going through this quarantine sort of type of situation?
Yeah, we've moved everything online. We've moved 100% of everything that we're doing at the church online,
That's awesome.
whether that's services, youth services, kids services. We're trying to create an atmosphere because honestly, if statistically right now, all social media, viewership is up. The analytics are just off the chart as far as, the typical cell phone use is, anywhere between 4 and 7 hours, depending on your range, your age, and your sex.
Yeah.
And right now, all those analytics are not, I don't want to say doubled, but they're pushing it.
No, I can
The
imagine.
average girl under about 20 years old spend about 6 to 7 hours on social media. And right now it's
Wow.
doubling right around 12, it's 12, 13 hours a day, which to me seems incomprehensible
Right.
because, most humans are only awake 14 hours.
Right.
And so it's just, I mean, so, obviously people are staying up later because there's not, anyway,
Yeah.
there's just a lot more. So we've had to, as a church, adapt to that.
That's
And
awesome.
you know, we're trying different things such as programming. You know,
Yeah.
each day on our social media at 8:05 a.m., you can expect somebody to do like a devotional, and then we'll do anything from like, you know, there's prayer times, there's communion time. So we're definitely taking life as far as the churches and moving it to people's life, which is now in their living
Almost
rooms.
like a network. You're like almost like sort of a you had to overnight. Like I know that like at the church that you're at, Grace Family, is like has been awesome with streaming. Like that's something that we've always experienced, which is really really great. But like it's great because what you're doing is you're almost creating like here at this schedule we have this going on. Here we're gonna have this schedule. Even my
Mhm.
son got to attend a youth group, which is he's never done remotely. He's always went in you know in person, which is quite impressive. But it's interesting because like at 10 Up, where I work, you know, we're a fully distributed company. So because we're remote already, it's like we've kind of were prepared for this, but it's just one of those things where it's really interesting because there's a lot of companies that we're not, and a lot of businesses and organizations all around the world are having to readjust and redefine who they are. And this is like the perfect time. And you were mentioning earlier to me as well. It's like, what is that like for people? What are you know? Are we supposed to be making new things happen? What, tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know you know this, Brad. Maybe not a lot of the viewers know, but I used to be in a band. I was the singer songwriter for Amber Lynn, and I have a passion project called Anchor and Braille. And one of the things about it is, you know, as soon as this whole, you know, when this epidemic hit, I realized that we have a captive audience and we have people that are sitting longing for content. And so for me, this is not about the almighty dollar. I make very, very, very little on this. I don't tour on it or anything like that. But I did see a need for continual content. I mean, I was checking up
Yeah,
on my cell phone all the time, checking on my favorite bands. You know, I know my wife was watching a live, you know, Third Eye Blind did something live. I know that
yeah,
Taking Back Sunday did a live show. A lot of bands are doing, so I wanted, you know, constant content as
yeah.
well. And so we upped our entire release date. We upped
Wow.
everything by exponentially because I just thought, man, why not release the record as soon as possible now? And there's a lot of moving parts that we couldn't do, but I could kind of move the singles forward, space them out greater, and just kind of always be talking, always be looking forward to
Yeah,
something in the next few months. Just because, you know, I just felt in my head, you know, again, I had to readjust.
yeah.
I had to accommodate a public who is hungry for content.
That's and see that was kind of Reacting Media. We were talking about this. It's like we want to put something out, and people need their people's eyeballs are on like the TV. People's eyeballs are on you know on their computers. And it's like we need to make that content. We need to be out there in front of it. And it's I'm so glad you brought that up because you were mentioning to me as well. It's like this is like a slingshot. It's like there's a lot of tension going on right now. But right now, like people are going to use that momentum, and it might be kind of crappy right now. But if you can play it perfectly, you'll be able to have a trajectory and just be able to come out of the gate really quickly. And I think that's what you did, like from a perspective of, hey, this is really crappy now, but I'm going to take this opportunity to put my content out there, something I'm working heavily and put my heart into, and I want to get it out there, and I'm going to move it up because this is what we got. So I think
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I mean, you and I were talking, we had what you would call like an online happy hour. We just hung out with a
Yeah,
lot of people,
yeah,
and we were talking about like this couple was saying that the best financial year for their, you know, because they were website developers, the
yep,
best financial year for them was when the housing crash happened in 08, 09, right around there.
yeah,
And it's because, you know, companies had to redefine and recalibrate, you know, and say, okay, I've got to look for different multiple income streams. And
yeah,
so I've got to figure out how we're going to do that. And
yeah,
so people, small mom and pop stores were like, well, I've got to get online. I've
yeah,
been so busy. And now that work has kind of subsided because no one's spending, because the economy is down, I've got to find other means of income. And so
yeah,
suddenly your website developer friends were getting money hands over fist
yep,
to create these websites. And so that's what I'm saying. And this is just as when I was talking to you about being a slingshot, is just, yeah, there is a lot of tension, a lot of anxiety. But
right,
if you play your cards right, if you start to invest into your social media, if you start to invest into your company, you start to invest in I was talking to somebody that just this day, and they're even younger than us. They've never been on Zoom, and they really spent time on FaceTime, and now they've had to recalibrate
That's
and
so
learn what
old.
Zoom is. And there's a lot of back end stuff that people don't realize that
Yeah,
like everything from like what is the importance of a simplicity, like you and I were talking about simplicity of Instagram, like
yeah,
keeping it as simple as possible. There's
yep,
a lot of stuff that we could be learning right now, and when we go back full into the workforce, when people are coming back outdoors,
yep,
now you have another income stream,
yeah,
especially if now online's crushing it. Now your store is back open,
yep,
and I just think it's a great time because the trajectory of where we could be, as
yeah.
opposed to before this all started, is could be exponential.
Coming back to the point you were saying, because we were chatting with everybody, e-commerce is huge right now. Like selling
Huge.
online. I mean, like nobody can go to the store, so people aren't really going in anywhere. So it's like, how do they get your product? I'm searching. Like I'm like I want to look at products. I've been looking at Amazon. I've been looking at different, even like just like this is one I can't. I'm trying to remember the Ugg awesome products. Like they have some of the greatest products online. It's like they don't have a physical store. You buy stuff online. So I think that's really important. And this is going to require, this is going to actually push companies to also want to be online more and do more
Yep.
online. Like you were saying, web development, it's super important. Which is again, I think is really, really big. We also were talking about having a box and being kind of contained and how you can be more creative. And I didn't hear this before, but they were saying that people can be more creative when they're put in a box, and they have to like have these boundaries because you have to do more and you have to think more outside of the box what you
Yeah.
can do in that box. So it's
Yeah.
really, really interesting. So right now all of us are put in a box, and it's like
Yeah.
how do we move and be creative and whatnot. And I think that's huge. So I think what you said about being a slingshot, I think that's a really good mentality. It's like let's be
Yeah, and a lot of benefits that come out of boredom. I mean, Sir Isaac Newton came up with calculus. William Shakespeare wrote some of his best stuff under quarantine. And
yeah,
so for me, like, I think that it is a quarantine versus sabbatical mindset.
yeah, yeah,
You can either take this as this is happening to me,
yeah,
I am stuck here, I am, I'm grounded, the ship is grounded,
yeah,
or you can take that as a moment to pause, reflect, gain momentum, and again, when you're let off, in the
yeah,
when they sound the race gun and you're ready,
yeah,
set, go, and you're all in, like you're just in a much better place. And so, just and so you and I came up with some ways that we want
yeah.
to share with people about how to invest in these moments of sabbatical.
Yeah, so
And
yeah, I'd love to hear. I know we had a list. So what would be the first one on your list?
for me, I think that is starting daily habits, a positive
That's
daily
awesome.
habits. I think we've all had that excuse. We've all said it out loud. I just don't have time.
Yeah,
I just don't have any time of the day.
right.
That it slipped my mind. It got away from me. I didn't put it in my calendar and all that stuff. You do not have that excuse anymore.
Yeah,
You've got to start daily habits. And so, whether that's something like, reading your Bible, or,
yeah,
exercising in the morning, first thing when you wake up, or,
yeah,
oh, I want to, start listening to this particular podcast, or whatever the case might be. I want to grow here, grow there.
yeah,
I want to cook more. I don't care what you have, excused away in the
yeah.
past. You don't have that anymore. So
Yep.
starting daily habits is,
That's
is
huge. I totally think that's awesome. I mean, they say habits, what does it takes 30 days or something like that to you have that
you
time.
got
People have that time right now. It's crazy. One of my lists was to reach out and get connected with your social audience more, your community. I think that's super important. Like a couple times I've set up Zoom meetings just to get connected with folks and stay in touch with those people. But posting things on Twitter and Instagram stories. I think you and I did something on Instagram, which I thought was awesome. Like you were just bringing random people in. Like I love that. Like that's the type of stuff I need to get connected. And one also, it's like you can't be out, connecting with people and going out with people all the time because of everything going on. But you could do that through Zoom. Like right now, we're chatting and having a great conversation over technology. I think that's important.
Yeah. I mean, and I want to dive a little bit deeper in that and just say,
Sure.
just don't isolate yourself,
Yeah.
especially in this time, man. I've had some friends tell me, that this is a super rough time for alcoholics
Yeah,
and
that's true.
addicts, and so, like, listen, if you're out there and you're struggling, man, find community. It's out there.
Yes.
People out there want to talk. I mean, there's
Yeah.
everything from suicide hotlines to,
Yes.
random chat rooms, anything, just do anything it takes not
Stay
to
busy.
isolate yourself in this time. I know it's quarantine, but it
Yeah,
doesn't mean that community has to,
that's
disappear
true.
from your life.
You know, one thing is, I'm glad you said that, because one thing that I think, diving deep on that, is our neighbors were like all going outside at a certain time frame, and everybody was just clapping, like just kind of sort of happy, like say like, hey, we're showing our affection and for the people that are out there on the front lines helping through all of this. And then some of the teachers went through and did a parade because they couldn't see their student, so they decided to go through at a certain time frame. They told everybody on social media like, hey, we're going to drive through your neighborhood, come say hi. And you could hear the horns, and everybody was kind of just going through. So I think that's also important too, is like your kids need to be connected too. So I think that's one thing, not just video games, but like finding other ways to see that joy as well is important.
That's good, my friend.
So
All right, so next for me, I would say plan for your future. This is a perfect time to come up with a 3, 5 1, 3 and 5 year plan. Man, that is massive. And just recently, this reminds me of the book Simon Sinek, Know Your Why. And if you've not read that, and powerful book, powerful book. But someone recently just showed me this format of laying out your mission statement, your action statement, and your vision statement. And for me, that was massive because I've pinned it on my wall at work. I've pinned it on my wall at home. And
yeah,
if I've given an opportunity, a job opportunity, a side job opportunity, whatever the case might be, to speak or whatever the case might be, if it doesn't line up with my mission, action, or vision statement, I just say no, which is very different than how I used to operate. Basically, I was just yes. I mean, it was
yeah,
completely yes all the time, just because you know, I had a lust for life, and I mean, I still
yeah,
do. It's just like you think that like, oh man, I'll never get this chance again. I'll never get this opportunity again.
right,
But in
right,
all reality, man, like you got to really perseverate on what you're good at. Make your and
yeah,
let your yeses be yes and your no's be no. Like so. Anyway, in this time, and like we mentioned just a minute ago, big companies develop business plans. That's what they
yeah,
do. They develop these. And
yeah,
so what is the difference between them and you? You may
yeah,
write business plans for small businesses or startups, or you may
yeah,
be a part of a corporation who has a business plan, or you may be a small business, and you're start, it doesn't matter. All I'm saying is why not apply that same tactic and those same principles into your own life? Because
yeah.
only good can come from that.
No, I think that's awesome. I definitely feel like that's one of the important ones because, again, you have time.
Yeah.
So setting those daily habits, as you mentioned, but putting something down on paper, and that's one thing I know Jen and I did. My wife, when we were looking to build a house, we were like, "What do we want? In a couple years, like what would we want?" And I remember finding that list. I totally forgot about the list, but I wrote it all down. And when I came back to it, I was like blown away at how we almost checked off everything off the list. And it was mentally because I sat down and dreamed with her. So I think what you say about taking the 3 and 5 year plan, like where do you want to be with your family, your friends, your business, it's super important. I think writing those things down is definitely huge.
Yeah.
I love that.
Absolutely, man.
Um, so
What's
one
next for
thing,
you?
yeah, so developing new skills and taking like an online class or something like that, getting a certification, these are all super super important. You have the time. It's not just about building habits but actually learning something. And one of the tools I know that I use from like with development and staying fresh on those type of things was Team Treehouse. Was awesome. There's like lynda.com, I know, is another one. Master classes is also important, but taking a look at those type of platforms where you can learn. I know cooking is a big one right now because you can't really go out to eat. I mean, you can technically, but it's people are cooking at home. I mean, to take a cooking course, I want to do the one from Gordon Ramsay. I
Hmm.
love that. I would love to have him talk to me and tell me what to do. And I know he's talking to a bunch of people, but I feel like he's talking to me. But I love the idea of a master class for cooking. Again, like development, design courses, project management. There's tons of things out there. There's a lot of resources, and I think that's one thing we could probably link to a couple, the ones I mentioned. But I definitely feel like that's something, taking that time to learn and educate, because I mean, when you're doing so much in your business or in your organization, you might not be doing in the thick of it. And I think that's one thing, is when you have that extra time, you can stay fresh on your skill sets, which is pretty awesome.
That's right.
So you had another one on your list here.
Right now, I think another thing to do is to teach something. You were talking about Team Treehouse and Master Class, but this is a great time that everybody out there has something to tell, has a story to share, has something that they're good at, profound at, that they could share at the next generation, or someone who really might not understand what it is you do, whether it's again, web development, or
Yeah.
your graphic design, and you want to kind of share that. So go to Vimeo, or go to YouTube, or and just create a YouTube video, create some type of content to where you're teaching people. I was talking to a gentleman. It was so random. Just the other day, I was giving him a call. He goes to our church, and he was talking, an elderly gentleman. So, it's so, and I don't know why it still surprised me, because everyone does have a story. And I was just
Yeah.
talking to him. I was just like, what are you up to in this time of isolation? He's like, oh, no, no, this is what I usually do. I make YouTube videos. And I was kind of thinking like, oh, that's cute. This guy gets up. It reminded me of like, Michael Scott, like, someone call YouTube, like,
Yeah.
what could this guy possibly be making videos
Yeah.
on? I didn't even know. And so he's like, oh yeah, I have this particular channel. And I forgot that. I wish I remembered the name of it right now offhand. And I went there just kind of like, oh, I wonder what it's about. And the dude has like 2.4 million, hits on just one of his videos. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
you are kidding.
Yeah.
And it was like how to read a book and how to absorb all the information.
Wow. Okay.
And he's just like, he's going through like a 12-minute video and like taking a textbook, and I watched the whole thing, dissecting it. And I was just like, my
Wow.
God, man, this guy,
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
it's
tons of stuff on YouTube you can watch.
tons of stuff, but it was just
Yeah.
so cool. So what I'm saying is, like, listen, if that guy can do it, you can do it too. And it's not about getting millions of plays. It's about, sharing your information, sharing
Yeah.
your knowledge, passing it along, and giving it to other people. Because I mean, that's a huge way to not only pass it forward, but also pass the time in a way.
I mean, that's kind of like what we're doing right now. We're putting together a video content to share and teach and talk about things that we're passionate about, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
So I
Yep.
love that. You had mentioned also about reading things. I know that's something I try to do more when I can, but I get distracted by other things. And I also like audiobooks more than anything. But you read a lot of books. I've talked to you multiple times. You have like a lot of books you've been hitting on the past couple of months. Tell me
Yeah.
more about that.
It's just a passion of mine. I'd like to constantly keep, my wife hates it because I always have 2 to 3 books unfinished by my bedside. And I get so annoyed when she moves. I'm just like, wait, where'd they go? And then
I was looking for that one. I was on chapter 8.
I was on chapter 2. I was 2 pages in. Uh, so, I love to read. I mean, there's a book called On Being a Servant by Warren Wiersbe, and he says, leaders are readers are leaders. And so I've always taken that to heart. And so, for me, there's been a couple good books that I've read this year. Big Magic was huge. She goes through the process of creativity.
Oh, that's
Another one
awesome.
that I highly recommend is called No Ego. If you own a company and you have any amount of employees, you must read No Ego.
Mm,
Trust me when I say you must read it. It is just a powerful way to create catalysts for change in your employees, instead of having them come and vent to you, having them come like just vomit word vomit all over you and just say this is everything that's wrong. It's about how to not manipulate, but how to change the culture of your business, your corporation, your startup, to becoming not only self-sufficient but self-starting. And
yeah,
so I highly recommend No Ego.
that's
What audiobooks are you into?
so. The one that I actually listened. So this is a new thing that I learned. Someone told me to try to listen to the audiobook, but then also read it at the same time. And I did that with The One Thing, which is by Gary Keller. That's a great book. Talks about one of the things that I think I took from it was that the ability to counterbalance your life. Like a lot of people say work life balance, and what he talks about is it's actually like more of like a counterweight, rather than like an extreme amount of family time and an extreme amount of work time. He was talking about making the counterbalance, like when you're like seeing something along the lines of like a pendulum swinging or whatever. It's like he talks about that in this book, and he talks about like, what is the one thing that you need to be doing, and setting up these little domino effect where you can do finish this small thing, and then it hits this one, and then it hits this one, and hits this one. And I just thought it was a great book, and I read that one, completed it, and listened to it, and it was awesome. But I highly recommend that book as well. It's a really, really good book.
That's awesome, man.
Other ones, no, I think there was one I'm reading on design systems. I can't remember the name of it, but if I'll link it in the comments as well. But that's actually a pretty good book if you're interested in like learning more about how a lot of companies are creating design elements and components within their organization. A design system isn't just like the brand; it's the brand and how a button looks, and how this module looks, and how that's presented on the web, how it's presented in the mobile, how it's presented within our organization's kiosk. It goes from start to finish of like a design system is the overall everything within your organization. And I think that's pretty cool. I'll link to that for sure in the comments. But
That's awesome, man.
yeah,
Well, we
so
went through, teach something, read something, and
yeah,
now we're going to end with start something.
start something. Yes, yeah. So starting Reactant, I think was one of our things. We want to talk maybe a little bit about that. I know.
Yeah. I mean, when I say start something, I mean, like, in this time of sabbatical,
Yeah,
if you've had a dream, if you've had a vision, man, I mean, I always want to start a band. I always want to write a song. I always want to
yeah,
start, you know, um, blogging. I want to write a book. I wanted to, create a company. I wanted to do an online store. This is that moment. This is that moment in
yeah,
history, that you have hours in the day that you can dedicate, not to Netflix. I heard the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours. Listen, congratulations on your 10,000th hour of Call of Duty. I know it's a free download, but it really got
I
you
don't play
no
Call of Duty.
further than a few. I'm just kidding.
I don't play that.
No,
No,
I'm
I
just
do, but
kidding.
it's fine.
But you know what I'm saying? Like what you dedicate your time to. I
Yeah,
mean, so utilizing this time to the best, most efficient use of your time. And so, like you're saying, we started something. I mean, that was kind of
yeah,
an idea you and I have had, and just it started out. We were like, hey, let's do some conferences, and then it turned
yeah,
into let's do consulting, and then we wanted it to even be bigger. We wanted to be a creative tour de force, and
yes,
so that's where we ended up right here today. You and I
yeah,
talking,
yeah.
excited
No,
launching
it
this.
it is exciting. It's like one of those things where it's like when you have a little bit more time in your hands, it gives you it gives you a minute to kind of put things in perspective and kind of think about that and think about like where am I heading with the time that I have. And I know one thing is like with family, it's like you have children and I have children. It's like you got to make time for that. That's important. But there are times where it's like I'm playing a video game and I'm like feeling bad that I'm playing a video game. I'm like, I could be putting my time into learning something. I could be reading a book. I could be starting something new and fresh. I could write a song, like writing music. It's like that's something I enjoy doing as well. It's like those are things that you have all of this time available. You should use it wisely. And I think
Yeah.
again, that's not like trying to tell people like use your time wisely. But
Oh,
it's
no,
like it
no
is
joke.
something that like Reacted Media I feel like is something for me is a passion project. It's also something that I'm super excited about because I feel like these are the types of things that people are in the world are asking, how do I begin? Where do I begin? How do I spend more time reading the Bible and also trying to do my work and also trying to, it's like organizing your time wisely and working together and working with your family and how you make that time. That's important. I think
Yeah.
this is the perfect time to sit down, reprioritize better habits, put those things down. I think you could make that happen, which is
Yeah.
really, really awesome. So I'm excited about it. So this is fun to start something new. Yeah,
Real
go ahead.
fast, just, with reactant, man, the name reactant is when two chemicals, when they collide, they don't leave, the same.
Yeah,
There's something different, and so that's what we're challenging you with. Is hopefully you've listened to us talk right now, and we have left you in a different place, a better
yeah,
place, hopefully. And so, like we're saying, go start something new, and that's what we're
yeah.
challenging. That's we're leaving you with that. It's just
So
And
how can people get in touch with us, Stephen?
yeah, you can hit us up, info@reactantmedia.com, and or Twitter, Reactant Media, any way that you see fit, because we would love to hear from you. Comments, questions, get in touch with us. We would love to help you in any way we can. Even if we can't, we'd love to connect you with someone who can.
Yes, that'd be awesome. Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate you listening in. We'll be in touch and we'll have some more content coming your way. Thanks so much.